what I found, which I thought was really interesting, was people who have a lot of money tend to think very differently about money than people who don't have a lot of money. It is talked about almost as a game. It is something that can be mastered. It is something that is logical and sort of there's a progression to it. And I just found all of that to be incredibly fascinating. And as my eyes were opened and I realized like, oh, there's a completely different perspective here that makes it much less scary and makes it much more enjoyable and fun.
Be the change you want to see. Make a difference by giving your money a purpose, a mission to do good. Welcome to Money with Mission, where we show you how to create passive income so that you have options for how to work and how to live your life while leaving a legacy of positive social impact.
Hey everyone, today we have Tyler Nichols. Tyler's just a little different story. Tyler is a seasoned entrepreneur who is passionate about serving people at scale through software. Yeah, we're going to be talking about software and the software that Tyler developed. He graduated with a degree in business strategy from Brigham Young University and later went on to teach 7th grade math in intercity schools with Teach for America. He received his master's degree from Boston University. He's an avid investor, personal finance aficionado, and sort of a lifelong financial advisor. Tyler loves to invent software that makes a difference, which led him to the creation of Kudosy. Through Kudosy, Tyler hopes to solve the financial literacy crisis in America and strengthen families across the globe. Welcome to the show, Tyler. Thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
It is. How's Utah? Tyler's coming from Lehi, Utah. Is it cold there yet? Winter?
Very, very cold. No snow on the ground currently, but a bunch just melted. We had a ton of snow earlier.
Oh, really? This is December. When does it start snowing there?
It kind of depends. Utah's been all over the map for the past couple of years, but usually around November, it starts dumping and the whole winter season, it just snows a lot.
I lived in Minnesota for 5 years, and it's like by Thanksgiving there's snow, and then it's just covered until April. Yeah, all my life.
It's crazy.
So you have done financial work for a long time. You taught math to 7th graders?
Yeah.
How was that?
It was a lot. 7th graders, notoriously are a hard age to teach, but I really enjoyed it because I think like that age range is very impressionable, right? Like they need a lot of support at that age. People are trying to figure out who they are and what they stand for and what they believe in. And so for me, it was extremely challenging because of the behavior and everything, but it was also extremely rewarding because, to this day, now it's like 15 years later, I still have some of my 7th graders texting me, wishing me Merry Christmas and all those things, and they want to stay connected because I made a long-term impact on them. And since I've kind of come into the business world, you don't get emails like that anymore, right? It's different. Yeah. So it was really cool to be able to help kids that way.
So it's 15 years ago, 7th graders, what's that, 13? Are they 13 at that point?
Yeah. So 12 or 13. Yeah. So now they're 25 to 30, in that age range. So
it's amazing that the impact we make on people that we don't really know while you're making it. You're just going about your business, doing the thing that you're here to do. And that's amazing. That's really good. Really cool.
It was very awesome. It actually kind of was sort of that inspiration point for Kudosy, the app that I later built, kind of came from that moment in time.
Really? Okay. So let's see, I guess let's go there. Actually, I'm going to ask you another question about money. You and your money story. How did you get to the point of building the app? I mean, we talked about in the introduction about it's to help with financial literacy, but how did you become financially literate, or when did you consider yourself financially literate?
Yeah. So my dad was a financial planner his entire life. He would help people manage their money, and he still does actually to this day. And as a kid, I thought it was the most boring thing in the world.
Yes.
I was like, oh my gosh, why would you dedicate your life to that? Right. But as I've gotten older, I've really seen how being able to manage your money effectively is just so powerful. There's so much pain that comes when families don't know how to manage money effectively. There's so much stress that comes with it. And when there's that stress, people treat each other more poorly, right? So if a mom or a dad is really stressed about money, they might yell at their kids or they might yell at each other. One of the most leading causes of divorce, for instance, is financial issues, right? And so it's this thing that sort of undergirds everything that we do, yet it's sort of kind of this taboo topic that we don't want to talk about too much, or we see it as boring. And so we just kind of write it off and we say, I'm not a money person, right? So kind of going back to the seventh grade thing, some kids would tell me, I'm just not a math person, right? But you can't just say I'm not a math person and then just walk away from math forever, right? And the same is with money, right? And so, anyways, I just started seeing all of these really important connections with money. And I just wanted to kind of help and share kind of the observations that I've had and really sort of support families as they try to navigate how do I learn how to be better with money and how do I teach my kids how to be better with money. I just think it's a fascinating thing that could do a lot of good. And there's not another solution that I feel really fills that void.
What made you decide that that was your thing to do? Did you have one particular moment? Did your dad teach you about money, or did you just learn it through osmosis by being around him? So give me a sense of how you got to feel that this was your thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah. My dad did teach me quite a bit about money. He always has had the mindset of sort of like slow and steady, save and save slowly over time and be kind of really wise with your spending that way.
Mhm.
Um, my mom was a little bit more, she was more stressed out about money over time. And I think like had some interesting different perspectives with money that just made it seem a little bit more finite and scary and all that sort of stuff. And so what was interesting was having the two different perspectives of my mom and my dad. I realized that I kind of had to go out and figure out sort of what is my own perspective on money. And what I found, which I thought was really interesting, was people who have a lot of money tend to think very differently about money than people who don't have a lot of money. It is talked about almost as a game. It is something that can be mastered. It is something that is logical and sort of there's a progression to it. And I just found all of that to be incredibly fascinating. And as my eyes were opened and I realized like, oh, there's a completely different perspective here that makes it much less scary and makes it much more enjoyable and fun because I think human nature, at least this is very true with me, I crave progress, right? And moving the needle forward. And with money, you can see that, right? You can see, okay, I got my net worth number. Is it bigger than it was last month? Is it smaller than it was last month? And maybe I'm one of those nerdy guys that, find that really fun. And maybe not everyone else does, but but I do think that there are some elements there that we could sort of share and give out to more people so that more people can sort of find the enjoyment behind some of this money stuff and really kind of shift that perspective. Because for me, that light bulb moment was big. And I just sort of want to help other people have a light bulb moment like that too.
Yeah. So one thing you said is that people who have money think about money differently. And I don't know if that's 100% true. Just thinking about, well, maybe it's people that work for their money. I think all of them think the same. That's just like whether it's a physician who spends their time for dollars, because I've talked to plenty of them who think exactly like the blue collar worker who
Yep.
spends, it's the same thought process. So maybe the thinking becomes different when you have money coming in from investments and passive income. Do you think it's different when the money's coming from something other than you spending your time for dollars?
Yes, yes, I agree. I would say that's a great distinction. And, people who have, large amounts of wealth and have sort of invest in different vehicles, the stock market, real estate, you name it, passive investments, as you mentioned, it's a very different way of thinking. It's really fascinating to me how they think versus sort of how a lot of us think.
I 100% agree. 100%. Time for dollars, workers and investors think very differently. Okay, so you got to this point and you realized that there was this gap in how people think about money. Time for dollar thinkers and investor thinkers. And granted, there's a baseline of where we all have to be, right? You have to have a certain amount of understanding of money. And so many of us don't even want to talk about it. It's like this secret thing.
Right.
The whole thing about you can't tell anybody what your salary is. How much money do you make? It's like, what are you talking about? This is like, it's just money.
Right.
Talk about sex easier than we talk about money. It's
It's
like,
true.
Nobody's coming after it, I promise you. So when did you start developing your software program? And I'm going to have you say it for me again because I'm just all of a sudden blanked on it. And then
Sure,
I got
yep,
Kudosy.
Kudosy, that's right. Yep,
Kudosy.
yep.
Kudos. Gotcha. Okay. Kudosy. Talk about that. What made you decide that was the way to go to get out into the world what you see we need as far as financial literacy?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess I'll start here. There was an interesting study out of Brigham Young University here in Utah a number of years ago that was pretty fascinating. They were trying to figure out what is the sort of most effective way to teach a person financial literacy.
Oh,
Um,
really?
yeah, and what they found was by far the most effective way is through experience. As people
Mhm.
experience things, it's different than sort of this death by PowerPoint or hearing a lot of information. And what I've found is a lot of times when we talk about financial education, it's very much, information that's disseminated, but there's no real good place to sort of experiment. And here's the great irony with money. In order to learn how to use it and to experience it, you have to have money in the first place. You
Yeah.
have to have money to learn how to spend it wisely, to spend it poorly. You have to be able to experiment. And as you experiment, you can learn more deeply these concepts. So it's hard, right? So it makes sense that people who have lots and lots of money, they can experiment more with their money. Therefore, they can learn faster than someone who cannot experiment as much with their money.
So I'm just going to say, because part of
Sure.
that is that fear of losing. And if you don't
Right.
have a lot, it's hard to play with it when you're like, I could lose it because I don't understand that. Whereas if you have, you're like, I can afford to lose whatever. It'll be painful, but I can make that back. It is a very much a mindset and thought
Absolutely.
process thing. Yeah. Games are the way. So that same like Robert Kiyosaki and Sharon Lecter's game, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, the Cash Flow 101. That's how I taught my kids money.
Yeah,
Played that game. So
exactly.
very safe. You can lose money and feel bad. And the emotions that come from losing fake money are so intense.
I know. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So yes, absolutely. And yeah, I love that. The Robert Kiyosaki made a board game about it, right? Like that was one of the first times I saw someone be like, okay, ooh, I like that, right? Because it lets you feel it. It's not just like, hearing about the principle of buyer's remorse or, something.
Right.
It's like,
Right.
oh, I could actually like spend money, lose money. And like it's actually like a real that emotional response is what actually teaches the lesson. And you're not going to get that by someone just talking at you, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
So that is a lot of how I wanted to sort of tackle this problem and how I wanted to address it. Another thing that I thought is really fascinating is there are a number of different studies that show that essentially a person's money habits are mostly set by the time they are 7 years old. And some different universities will even go up to 9 years old, but it's like around that 7 to 9 year time frame, which is significantly younger than I think most of us believe, right?
Yeah.
Like we typically start talking about money when we are, maybe teenagers, if we're lucky, sometimes older than that. But what's interesting is by that point, kids and people in general, we already have kind of a basis of what money is, right? We've seen what our parents do with money. And so we start feeling like, ooh, money is scary or money is fun or money is whatever, right? And so you already have a very established mindset. And then as, people like you and I try to help people as they're older, learn how to get a better mindset with money and manage your money more effectively and all of that, you're fighting years and years of habits that were already trained in, right?
Yeah. Yes.
And so Kudosy is designed to be a gamified experience. I call it a financial playground, and it's designed for kids before their habits are even established. And so here's essentially how it works. As a parent, when I have young kids, and I've seen Kudosy be really effective for kids even as young as 2 or 3 years old. I can then in the app start giving my kids kudos for good behavior. And this kind of ties back into what I was mentioning earlier in the classroom. There's a tool called Class Dojo, which is brilliant. So basically, all my seventh graders had like these little avatar characters. And as they behaved well, I gave them points. And when they did poorly, I took away points. And what was amazing is these kids, they're 12 and 13 years old. I would give them points and it was amazing. The entire classroom just transformed. Like everyone wanted to behave because they wanted the points. And I was saying, like, hey guys, these points are meaningless. Like
Nothing mean nothing. Exactly.
nothing, right? But to the kids, they're like, oh my gosh, the sound was cool. And like everyone else in the class was like, yeah, you got a point and whatever. And like, you lost a point. And, oh, like all the emotions that go with it.
Wow.
And I was blown away that like the behavior where it was a really big problem in my classroom changed very quickly when I started really implementing this because they liked these positive rewards. So essentially, I took that concept and I created a family economy with it and gave it to parents everywhere inside of the Kudosy app.
Okay.
So as kids behave, and it can be whatever the parent wants to define as good behavior or helping people, building their talents, whatever they want, kids get kudos. And then with those kudos, they can spend them like real dollars. So they can spend them on a curated list of items. So I've got toys and games and really fun things from Amazon. They can choose to purchase on there, or you can have fun experiences. So maybe it's like go to the park with dad or bake a cake with mom or those sorts of things. And kids also have the ability to invest their kudos so they can earn what they want to earn faster, or they can give their kudos to each other. So if they want to provide value for someone else in their family, a sibling or whatever, they can, and they can exchange kudos that way. So it is a playground that allows you to experience things. And sometimes they buy really dumb stuff, and sometimes they buy really awesome stuff, and sometimes they invest and they're just through the moon because, oh my gosh, this is so cool that my money is working for me. That it's just a really, really cool experience overall. And it's well loved by those that are using it.
Does it translate easily for those kids to money? That's one question. And has it been around long enough to see how it does translate into financial literacy or real money, whatever real money is these days? Literacy. Yeah. Have you seen that?
Yeah. So our app, it officially launched in Christmas Eve of last year. So it's almost a year.
Okay.
Yep. So it's almost a year old. And it's been really fun to watch as people have been using it. To answer your other question, kudos themselves by default are worth about 10 cents. What we found is by having sort of this fictional currency of kudos, it's kind of like the dollars in Robert Kiyosaki's game, right? It allows you to play without the stress of the money. And as a parent, you can actually go in and adapt it. So let's say, money's tight in the family right now. We don't have a whole lot of money, but I can go in and I can make the value of a kudo be maybe 1 penny instead of 10 cents. So that way they have to earn more kudos to buy things. But I can also be really, really strategic with what the kids get. So like, for example, and I think this is oftentimes very much overlooked as a reward, but maybe, we have a family movie night and it's 20 kudos for a kid to decide you get to pick the movie that we all watch.
Yeah.
That power to, for the 4-year-old to be able to decide, oh, I'm in control and we can watch whatever movie I want to watch. Like that's a big deal.
That's huge.
There's value there and there's excitement there. And then the kid is like, oh my gosh, I got to do this. And it's because I earned it. Right. And to your point earlier, when people actually earned the dollars, they spend them differently. Right. Mm-hmm. And so I believe kids are not too young to understand that phenomenon either. And so like when they earn these kudos, they have the experience and the joy of earning them themselves and then deciding how they want to spend them. So then they can start gaining their own opinions about money outside of whatever else they're hearing. They gain their own opinions because, they did it.
So we're talking about the kids and how they get to spend their kudos. How are parents? So parents who aren't very financially literate, are they buying that? Are they subscribing to it as much? And it seems like to me, once a parent gets in there and starts doing it with their kid, they're going to actually learn something too in that whole game. What did you call it?
Financial playground.
It's your financial playground. So is there a place? So to me, it seems like there might be a gap for families, for parents who don't have very much financial literacy to understand the importance of it. And then even if they do understand the importance and get it, it seems like there's could be a lot of benefit to those parents also.
Yes, absolutely. So the app itself is designed for parents. So it's sort of an ultimate parenting tool that helps drive behavior and it also teaches financial literacy at the same time. So parents are going to be the ones with it on their devices. They're the ones that are going to be using it, giving the kudos to the kids. But you're spot on. As you start kind of engaging in this financial playground with your kids, parents also sort of learn these lessons because sometimes it's hard to see when we ourselves are making poor choices, but it's
Yeah.
easier to see when other people are, right?
100%. Yes. Yes.
So when
Yes.
your kid starts doing certain things, I know I've seen this myself as we've used it with our kids, and even before Kudosy existed, I was using, sort of a made up version to try to do this. I saw sort of my kids doing things that I recognized in myself, right?
It's
Like,
it's
oh my gosh, I would have done that too,
where did you get that from? Oh, that's me. Okay.
Right, right. And so it's really, really fascinating to sort of see how that goes because you're able to sort of look at the meta of how to spend money and use money effectively because you're seeing it in someone else. The other thing that I would say is we have a newsletter that accompanies the subscription with Kudosy and it is, packed full of awesome tips, both for learning financial principles yourself, as well as kind of helping to like bring more happiness and joy into the family, right? How can we shift away from, life is stressful. Like, how do we like not yell as much? How do we be more positive? How can we get the behaviors that we want? All those sorts of things. And so that the newsletter, I think, also provides a lot of content that will help teach parents how to use money effectively and help their own finances as well.
So gone possibly are the days of you get paid for your chores. That still happens, but does that still happen? I don't know. Kids just
Yeah,
how for the heck to get money.
right. Yeah, so I think it's kind of an interesting phenomenon. So allowance, I think, is something that I think it still does go on. One thing though that's really, really challenging with it though is no one has cash anymore, right? So
Yeah.
even if you want to pay your kid an allowance, it's pretty much a long string of sort of obnoxious sort of IOUs and trying to remember it. And oh, I owe you $10, and then they say, oh, you owe me $20, and you say, no, I only owe you 10. They say, well, you didn't, we didn't spend it yet. And anyways,
Yeah.
it's a whole thing. So Kudosy, actually, another function that I love about it is it allows you to track all that sort of stuff, inside the app. So that way you can keep track of it. So you can very easily say like, oh yeah, I have a record that I paid it to you and I have a record that we spent it because it's here in the app.
And actually, then it sounds like can you get your kid to go and look at that too? It's like, I need you to go and check that because I believe I did pay you and they can actually look for their own records because you put it in there.
Yeah. So that is something we're building towards. Currently, there is not a sort of a kid access point into the app yet.
Okay.
But as a parent, you can go into basically every kid has a little debit card that they use that hold kudos. So it's sort of a fictional debit card. And you go in and you can see all the transactions of everything that's occurred. And there's different statistics around how much was earned and all those sorts of things. So
Okay, so I think I'm going to clarify because I think I did misunderstand. This is a thing that's on the parent's phone,
correct.
and the parents have all the control of it. I guess a 10-year-old who has a phone could download the app on their phone, but they really don't have do they have a way to subscribe? It's a subscription. It's through your parents, right?
Yeah. So, yep. So the parent is the one that has the subscription. They're the ones that are getting the value of having this sort of tool and they can manage their family economy and help drive behavior and all of that. Over time, we are going to add in some additional features so that way kids can sort of, the parent account can invite kids to it. So then on their own devices, they can access what's on their parent's account.
That makes sense. Okay. Got it. So I know a lot of women surgeons, physicians, we've got kids who are, sometimes the kids can be a little spoiled because we are busy and we want to just kind of make sure they're happy because we're not getting to spend the time we want. This looks like something that might be, I don't know where I was going with that statement, but it was like something that we could use that would help. I don't know. I just am thinking of how moms that are professional out there can use this to help their kids learn about money and why I'm not necessarily with you all the time. These are the things that are going on. It's just that kind of conversation. This actually, I guess I'm thinking it could open up a lot more conversations. You start talking about money. the sky's the limit from there, right?
Right.
And about everything from then on.
Yeah. And that's another, big thing with Kudosy that I've just loved is it does start the conversation. Oftentimes when we talk about money, we refer to the study as personal finance. But in my opinion, personal finance is not that personal. It actually is sort of a team sport, right?
Yeah.
How my wife spends money or how my kids view money. It all affects our family bank account,
Right.
like it all is related, right? And so I think it's so important that we talk more about money. And Kudosy, one of the beautiful things about it, I think, is that it enables sort of like the dinner table talk about money and about, hey, I want you're at the cash register and the kid's like, I want a candy bar, And it can be like this really obnoxious or hard conversation, but you can say, hey, do you want to spend your kudos on that? You
Mhm.
worked for those kudos. Do you want to spend them here or do you want to
Mhm.
spend them somewhere else?
Mhm.
And then they can decide, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is how you really really make it hit home for kids. Cause yeah, it is so easy for a kid just to get an idea in their head that, oh, money just comes or it just doesn't, right? It's sort of a weird sort of ecosystem that they live in, and Kudosy allows them to have more control.
That I love that about the candy bar because one hard thing for us is like, your kid doesn't need that candy and you want them to not have it but if you get, it's like, okay, that's how you want to spend your kudos. Great. Now they come up and they want this video game or whatever, some other things like you got no kudos. You spend it on that candy.
Right.
That is a lesson right there.
Yeah. And that is a lesson that you can't teach. There are no amount of words that you can tell your kid for them to get it. And
Yes.
it is just so impactful. Like for me, my daughter, she went into Kudosy and she set a goal that she wanted to buy this mermaid terrarium.
Okay.
It's this little toy on Amazon. She's 5, very little. And so she has this goal and she started earning all these kudos for weeks. She was saving up her kudos and we have a little graph that you can see kind of getting closer to the goal and closer to the goal. So she finally gets her terrarium. She earns enough. We buy it for her. It comes and she is so happy. She's over the moon as she's trying to build this little mermaid terrarium. You put in all this sand and all these different little things into it. It's very adorable.
Uh-huh.
Right. So she's super excited about this thing. And then she is so excited that she grabs it and she accidentally drops it on the floor and everything is ruined. It is all ruined. And she just starts crying and she's like, oh my gosh, I worked so hard for that. And I just ruined it in a second. Right. That was a lesson. I could not, there's no way I could have taught her that. However, what I loved was in that moment, I was there. When she's an adult, I won't always be there. But as a kid, I could say, you know what? You worked really hard for that. Let me get you another one.
Yeah.
It obviously wasn't quite that simple because I wanted to teach her the lesson, but I was there to wipe away her tears and she learned the lesson.
Yes.
It's a lesson that she will have forever is when you save up for things and you own things, you should protect them. You should take good care of them. Right. And now it is fascinating because when I've noticed that she takes better care of our appliances. She's not banging on the refrigerator. She's not, hitting other things because she gets the concept that you work hard for things. And then when you do, you want to take care of them.
Yes.
And not in a million years could I have taught that lesson to her as powerfully as that moment that she experienced.
And you didn't have to yell. You didn't have to spend a lot of words. It was just done.
And actually in that moment, I was the good guy.
Yeah.
I was the guy. I was the hero that came in and saved the day. Right. I was not, getting mad or yelling. She was sad. I helped her find a solution and she learned a powerful lesson. Right.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to do with Kudosy. And that's why I think it matters. And that's why, nothing else I've seen does something like that. So I'm like, I got to build this thing because I want it for my family and I've been using it and I love it. And now hundreds of families are using it too. It is so amazing. And it's so exciting to get to more people because I think these lessons are powerful and anyone can have them.
Yeah. What do you think is the best age to start using it?
Yeah. So I would say 3 years old.
Really? Okay.
It sounds very, very young, but I would say 3 years old. The reason is because when kids are that young, sometimes it's hard to get them to do the things you want them to do, right? I was sitting waiting for my daughter at a little activity, and I saw this young mom fighting a 3-year-old, and they were just trying to get him to like stand up and go to where she was. And, every parent knows this experience quite well, and it can be sort of frustrating and everything.
Yeah.
But what I found is with a tool like Kudosy, as the kid does good things, you give them a kudo, and it's got a really fun sound effect and a fun animation, and the kids really like it. And the reward is for the 3-year-old is the sound effect. They don't even need a reward beyond that. It's the sound effect that they're, I want more of that. And like, I can see that mom or dad is like super excited, and I get to hit the button to make the sound. Like, they like it, right? And so then they'll start doing it more and more and more. And so you start getting kudos that way. And then later you can start having those conversations around, okay, now you have some kudos. Do you want them to like spend them on things? And so like when my son was 3 years old, we were at a petting zoo, and there was a section that was like exotic pets that you could go pet. And it was like $2 or something to go pet the kangaroo or whatever.
Okay.
And we asked him, do you want to spend your kudos to go in there? And it was so fascinating to sort of see his gears turning. And then he's like, you know what? Yes, I do. And so then he decided to go in, and there was so much excitement because not only was he able to go pet the animals, but he was also able to like have that feeling of like, I earned this, like it was me. And again, 3 years old, like I believe super little kids can experience this. And so, I really believe you start super, super young with this sort of mentality, because what person does not benefit from learning at a very, very young age how to provide value and to do good things, and then you get what you earn, sort of a thing. Like these principles are so valuable. And I think way too often people are like, oh, my kid's like 10, he's too little to learn, financial stuff. And it's like, no.
10 is definitely not too young. No.
Right. So I would start him as young as someone feels comfortable with, really. And for me, I think the 3-year-olds are sort of where I think we found sort of the youngest that I think it kind of makes sense.
And the 3-year-old is going to understand that their behavior has a consequence, and they have a positive consequence of hearing this lovely sound, or the negative consequence, whatever that might be, that they don't get the sound. So it's one more tool in their arsenal. Say that again.
There's a little like buzzing sound when you lose one. And so, they just get these sort of sound associations to know when it's good and bad. And another thing that is really fascinating is we found this is really effective even for kids that like have ADHD and are, bound to like jump around a lot. This is actually really, really effective. There's actually a lot of research out there about positive parenting and positive sort of affirmations and things. And so we're taking all of those sort of research and it's kind of embedded it within this gamified experience. And it's just really a wonderful thing.
That's exciting. That's really exciting. So if a parent wants to go, anybody out here, I know there are a lot of parents listening, if they're thinking, I want to check this out, where should they go to check this out?
Yeah, they can come to kudosy.com. They'll see a bunch of information about it. And we have our app. It's live on the Apple App Store. We currently are working on Android, but it's not here yet. And so it's on the Apple App Store, called Kudosy Family Wallet. It's sort of a pig with a $sign next to it as the logo. And yeah, we'd love for anyone to hop in. And we've got a free 7-day trial for anyone so they can try it out and see if it's a good fit for their family.
And it's kudos with a Y on the end. So
that's exactly right.
And if you're driving or doing whatever you're doing while you're listening to this, it'll be in the show notes. Why a pig with a $sign?
So it's your digital piggy bank, essentially.
I gotcha.
So we have the little mascot of it is a pig. He's a piggy bank, and he dreams about being a superhero pig. He wants to be big, and his superhero alter ego is Maximum Bacon. He wants to have all the dollars, right? So it's very fun.
That's, you said digital piggy bank. Of course, I just started doing a little bit of crypto investing. So that's the first thing that came to like, oh, we're doing crypto now in a piggy bank. Okay. My friends, when I say crypto investing, they're like cringe. Like, how are you? It's not investing. You're just okay, whatever. But Tyler, thank you so much. This was good. You guys check out Kudosy, and you got kids. You want them to understand money. I know many of us are just starting to get there now with our own financial literacy. Let's get our kids a head start so they can be so much further along than we are. That's the most important thing. And I know everybody wants it for their kids in every part of their lives. Let's get it for them for their money too. Thanks so much, Tyler. See you guys later.
You've been listening to Money with Mission. There are projects happening right now where you can have a great financial return while positively affecting the lives of others. To learn more about our opportunities, go to moneywithmission.com.